Very good morning, students. Welcome to prestigious IIT JEE and NEET Foundation, our Focus C program by Krishnaveni Talent Schools and the Mastermind Schools. So once again, I welcome all the class 8th students for today's session. As you all well aware, and also can see on the screen, my subject is physics. We are in class 8th, our ongoing chapter, friction. Today, we are entering into the session number 3. Probably we'll close the session today so that tomorrow we can start the new chapter, light, for test number 5. So last 2 sessions, we discussed about the friction. It's a very small topic. It is one kind of force actually. One kind of force which is nature's force. So it is comes from the nature, given God gifts, we can say. Because we cannot imagine our life without friction. No friction, neither you can hold the pen, neither you can hold the object, nor you can walk, nor you can breathe. So many important factors are there for the wonderful force called friction. So we already discussed about what is friction and what are the main factors influencing the friction, what are the different types of frictions, on what factors these types of frictions depends, and what are the advantages of friction and disadvantages of friction. Both are there. Friction is having the good effect as well as evil effect also. So today, after recalling them, we will find about how to reduce the friction. Some cases we need to reduce the friction to avoid the skidding and avoid the heat produced in various machine parts in the industries. We need to reduce the friction. So what are the steps taken to reduce the friction? Many things we learned today about this before closing the session, right? Along with some video on the friction, reducing friction. So before that, just when you recall what we learned from your materials, also you can see here. You can see this all the total summary of points here. So friction, I already told friction is a force or nature's force which always opposes the motion. Means it always acts to the opposite direction of the motion. Simple way, when you are rolling the ball on the floor, after going some distance, ball will stop. Why it is stopped? Because some force is acting opposite to it. Such a force which always opposes motion of a body is called frictional force. So from where it is coming, we are not applying the force. It is coming to nature only. So it is a nature's force comes into play when two bodies are in contact. There should be contact between the two bodies. Then only the force will come. Then the second one is types of frictions. You already seen, like static friction, kinetic friction, rolling friction are the 3 types. Depends on the position of the body over the another body. When body is at rest, the friction acting is static friction. When body started moving, overcoming the frictional force, then kinetic friction or dynamic friction. When body is rolling, like your wheels to the suitcase and all, it is called rolling friction. Then loss of friction. So all the frictional force, either it is a static, kinetics or rolling, is directly proportional to the normal reaction. That is a perpendicular force acting. From that, we derive what is the coefficient of friction and all. We have seen already mu. Then what are the advantages and disadvantages of the friction? Already told, friction is having the good effect because without friction, neither you can walk, nor you can hold the objects, nor you can breathe. Definitely you cannot live. That is advantage. Disadvantage, where there is a friction between the two bodies, heat is produced, it may damage anything. Right? So many things are happening without the friction. Then angle of friction, we will conclude with this one, angle of friction and how to reduce the friction. Okay. So as we move forward for today's session, so we'll see what are the See, these are the different types of frictions: limiting friction, static, sliding, or nothing but kinetic only, rolling friction, right? The normal force, the force always acts the perpendicular to the body which are in contact. They may be on smooth surface, they may be on inclined surface also. But normal force always acts perpendicular. That's why it's called normal. Normal is nothing but perpendicular, right? Then, when you come to synopsis 3, we discussed about the laws of frictions. On which factors friction depends. It depends on the nature of surfaces and the normal force acting on the body. That's all. It doesn't depend on many other things. Here we have seen next advantage and disadvantage of frictions. We have seen the video also. So when you see advantages, always opposes the relative motion between the two bodies. Therefore, an extra energy has to be spent. To overcome the friction, we need to spend extra energy. Otherwise, you cannot overcome the friction. Right? Then methods of reducing frictions. Today we'll discuss clearly. Ball bearings and so many ways we have to reduce the friction. Otherwise, what happens? Suppose in your cycle also, when you run the cycle continuously, we'll get some sound in the wheels because of continuous motion, there is a friction between the wheel and ball bearing. Sound will come. So what we'll do? We'll pour some oil or grease. Even in two-wheelers vehicles also, what they'll do? Change the oil change. Why oil changing? Because they want to reduce the friction. And if not, what happened? The part will be damaged because of continuous rubbing. Even a shoe also, when you wear the shoe, why is shoe lacy? Sole is spoiling day by day when you are walking on the floor because of friction only. That's why they use the grip. When you see cricket bowlers or any other players, they use the grip under the shoe to protect from the friction and to avoid the skidding. Right? Why your tires are not so smooth? Why they have the threading? To avoid the friction and to avoid the skidding only. There are so many areas where you can find the methods of reducing friction. Even industries also. When the big industries, when the machines are working continuously, they produce more heat. So because of that, there is a wear and tear in the machine. Machine may crack. So to avoid that, again, they'll introduce the ball bearings. They'll introduce the lubricants in the form of oil or grease. Right. So these are the mainly how to methods to reduce the friction. So before going for that, so see here. Depends on the surface only. Lubricants, what happens when you are putting the oil or grease? They'll form the layer between the two parts. Right? They come the layer between the two parts and makes the body to move smoothly, avoiding the friction. Then one more beautiful things we learned in the last class is about the fluid friction. The friction exerted by the liquids also or gas. What is fluid? Both liquids and gas. Fluid is nothing but which flows. Which flow. Solid won't flow. If you place solid any place, it won't move. But liquid and gas will flow. So liquid plus gas together called fluids. Not only solids exert the friction, between the liquids and gas also friction can be seen. Suppose swimming of fish. How fish will swim in water? By overcoming the frictional force. Even water also exerts the opposite force. Aeroplane, bird. These are all the God's creation. But in case of aeroplane or fish or bird, why they are given the shape? Why they are given the wings? That is called streamlined. With that shape only, we can overcome the friction. We cannot make the bus to fly in the air because bus shape does not allow the fluid friction to overcome. We cannot make the bus to swim in the water or run in the water. The shape also, see, different. The God creation, you see how the fish is the shape. Same shape we are designed the aeroplane also. Or bird. Why the shape are given for the bird and fish? To overcome the fluid friction, liquid friction or air friction. Even our cars also. Depend on the shape only, they overcome the fluid. That is the reason different shapes are given for the cars. Sports car shapes is different. Normal car shapes is different. See the fish shape of the fish. All these shapes are called streamlined shape. They are called streamlined shape to overcome the friction of either liquids or air, or water or air. Such a wonderful nature's force makes the body to swim or fly or run is called a frictional force. Right? So that is fluid friction also plays vital role in the aeroplane, flying of birds and swimming of fishes or any other water animals. Okay, so before going for know more about the our advanced, that is reducing methods of reducing friction, let me show you one video on the friction. Right, let's watch the video related to the frictional force, that is how the methods of reducing the friction. Okay. These are the points already covered. Here you can see. Because I believe learning by doing is the best method. By seeing, you can remember more than by explanation. So almost in every class I am showing some more of the videos collected from various sources.
Frictional force. If a force is necessary to move an object, another force is required to stop it. This stopping force can be exerted by a person or an obstacle. However, the moving object comes to rest even in the absence of these forces.
विवेक आप गए नहीं?
सर वो
When we hold a pen in vertical direction as shown, the gravitational pull acts on the pen in downward direction. But as the pen is stationary, we can say that the total force acting on the pen is zero. This gravitational force acting on a pen is overcome by the force exerted by our fingers. Similarly, when we slide a book on a tabletop, it stops after moving a certain distance. Here, the tabletop exerts force on the book, which is responsible to slow it down and then stop the relative motion between the tabletop and the book. Friction plays a very important role in our daily life. We are able to write, walk, apply brakes to slow down the vehicle, tie knots, fix nails and screws, make woven clothes because of friction. Force of friction not only tends to stop a moving object, it also tends to stop a stationary object from moving. That is why it is difficult to move the heavy box. Properties of frictional force. It is produced only when one body tends to move or is actually moving on another body. It always opposes relative motion between the surfaces of contact. Example of contact force, irrespective of the direction of the motion.
Types of friction. To move a stationary object, you have to apply force. As you apply continuously increasing force to the stationary object, the force of friction also increases. The force of friction between two or more solid objects which are not moving relative to each other is called static friction. As you apply more force, there comes a point when the object starts moving. At this point, the static friction is the maximum. Once the box begins to move, it is easier to slide it. This is because now, relative to the floor, the box is moving and the irregularities of the box and the floor do not get enough time to lock into each other. The friction produced between a surface and an object sliding over it is called sliding friction. Moving a box kept on a stand with wheels is much easier as the wheels roll over the surface of the floor. The friction produced between the rolling object and the surface is called rolling friction. It is easy to observe that the force required to start the motion of an object is more than the force required to continue to keep it in motion. It is thus justified to say that sliding friction is less than static friction. Also, rolling an object is easier than sliding it. Hence, rolling friction is less than sliding friction. We can simply express it as static friction greater than sliding friction greater than rolling friction. Now you understand why it is convenient to pull a heavy travel bag
Right.
fitted with rollers than sliding it. The principle of rolling friction is used in machines by using ball bearings. Ball bearings are small metallic balls which roll between two moving surfaces and reduce friction between them.
Just a minute, we'll come back.
Friction. To understand friction, let us consider the following example. Place the ball on the floor and push the ball to set it rolling. You will observe that the ball slows down after covering some distance and finally stops rolling and comes to a stop. Is there any force that acts on the ball and stops it? What is this force called? This force is known as friction and is always directed opposite to the direction of motion. Friction acts between two surfaces on contact, which can be solid, liquid, or gas. Friction can have many
Right.
effects. Wear and tear. Compare the soles of a new pair of shoes with the ones that you have been wearing for some time. What causes the soles to wear out? The force of friction between the ground and the soles of your shoes wears out the soles. For example, parts of machines, tires of vehicles, etc. get worn due to the force of friction. Produces heat. When you rub your palms together,
So
heat
heat
is
is
produced.
produced.
This
of
is
friction.
because friction produces heat. Advantages and disadvantages of friction.
Which finally will come reduced.
What would happen if there is no force of friction acting in the following scenarios? A ball is rolled on ground. You walk on a road. You apply brakes to your bicycle. Without friction, the ball will never stop. You will not be able to walk and the bicycle will not stop. If friction
on
did
going.
not exist, there would be no grip between the surfaces. Hence, friction plays a very important role in our day-to-day life. Advantages of friction. Friction between a pen and paper enables you to write. Without friction, the pen will slip over the paper. Friction helps in fixing a nail onto a wall.
Notice board.
A matchstick burns on striking a matchbox due to friction between the two surfaces.
Lightning.
Friction between the feet and the ground enables you to walk. If there was no friction, you would slip as soon as you tried to walk. Buses, trucks, cars, etc. are able to move on the road due to the friction between the road and the tires.
Vivek,
Okay,
आप गए
understood,
नहीं?
na? Just a minute. Yeah.
सर वो
Disadvantages of friction. Friction causes wear and tear of surfaces and materials. For example,
Spoiling.
tires of
Tearing the
buses,
material.
cars, trucks, etc.
Car tires also
wear out
spoiled,
due to the
vehicle tires,
friction
cycle
between
tires.
them and the road. Soles of shoes wear out due to friction. Moving parts of machines such as screws and ball bearings need to be replaced as they too wear out due to friction. Friction between surfaces generates heat.
Heat.
You have seen this while rubbing your palms. However, generation of heat is not always useful. Various parts of machines get damaged due to the heat generated by friction and need to be replaced frequently. Lot of energy is wasted when a machine gets heated due to friction. Also, energy is wasted to overcome the force of friction while moving an object. Methods of increasing friction. Tires of vehicles are corrugated to increase the friction between them and the surface of the road. Increased friction provides tires a better grip on the road. Soles of shoes used by players have spikes on them. The spikes increase friction
Spikes.
and provide a firm grip on the ground while playing. Kabaddi players rub sand on their hands to increase their grip. Soles of shoes are grooved to increase friction. This enables us to walk without
Spikes
slipping.
or grooves.
Ways of reducing friction. Lubricants are substances that help to reduce friction in machines. Grease or oil is applied between the moving parts of machines to reduce friction. Ball bearings are used for rolling two surfaces over each other. Wheels are used for moving heavy suitcases and bags. Wheels offer less friction and hence make it easier to move heavy items. Streamlined shape of fish,
Fluids.
boats, birds, aircrafts, etc.
Why
reduces
they are given
friction
shape? Because
and
of
helps them to move in water and air easily. Methods of increasing and reducing friction. Have you noticed wrestlers and gymnasts applying some coarse substance in their hands? Why do soles of shoes and slippers have grooves? Why do players sprinkle powder on the carom board? It is either to increase or reduce friction. Friction can be increased or
Right. So wonderful explanation is given. Entire total topic is explained here. What is the friction? What are the types of frictions? Right. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of friction? And how to increase the friction in some cases, and how to decrease the friction. Right. Everything is shown in the video. So if you for clarity, you can see the videos through YouTube also later after completion of class. So now some more information about before concluding the class. Here I have some more information regarding how or some way to reduce the friction. Because reducing friction is very important factor. First one is lubricant. Use lubricants like oil or grease to fill in the gap between the surface and reduce the friction. Generally what we'll do, we'll drop oil. Suppose door. In rainy season, your doors will get noise, some gate. What we'll do in gates, we'll drop some oil. When oil is dropped into the joining part of the gate, that is hinges, we can call it as. Door hinges or gate hinges. They become smooth and you can open the gate without sound or open the door without sound. So oil will be placed between the two parts where there is a rubbing and makes reduce the friction. Next, polishing. Make surfaces smooth to reduce the friction, because some cases polishing surfaces may danger, will slip also. But some cases you need the polished surface to polish. Streamlining, Areto, designing, giving particular shape like fish, aeroplane, cars. See, design to streamline bodies like ships, boats, and aeroplanes to reduce the fluid friction, that is friction of liquids and gases, can be reduced by streamlining the shape of the body. Ball bearings, ball bearings, na? You can see in cycle also. Mount shafts on ball bearings in rotation machine to reduce the friction between the rolled objects and surfaces. Then use of fine powder. Use carom board. Use of fine powder on surface like a carom board. Use of graphite powder. Graphite powder also reduces the friction. Graphite powder between the moving parts of the machine. There is a graphite powder. Use an air cushion. See, very important. Use an air cushion between the moving parts in the machine where oil or lubricant may not be advisable. Where we cannot put oil and grease, we can use the air cushions. A cushion filled with the air is introduced there to reduce the friction. So these are all the various methods to reduce the friction and avoid the wear and tear or damage of the parts, machinery parts, or like tires, shoes. So many are there. So the total chapter is a very simple topic on the force, friction force, but there are various information is given, right? Lot of information about the friction is given in the chapter. So remaining part, when you come to the part of worksheets and all, please, I request all the teachers to encourage the student to go through the workbook. Because of lack of time, we are unable to do. So by the time of test 5, you covered everything and we'll move to the worksheets also. But right now it is your responsibility to go through the workbook and attend the test 4 examination, right? So Here what we have done is we have done with the total friction. Total starting from the word friction to till the today's class. Total 3 classes we covered. The first one is what is friction, correct? Then second one is types of frictions. So there are 3 types of frictions are there. Then third one is about we learn about even fluid friction also, friction of gas and air. Then fourth one is we learn about the advantages and disadvantages of friction, advantages and disadvantages. So they have both good effect and evil effect also. Number 5, we learn about the, after knowing about how to increase the friction, we have seen it clearly in video. Increase friction, for some cases we need to increase the friction, and some cases we need to reduce the friction. Increase the friction and reduce the friction. So this indicates clearly how important role of friction in our life. So we cannot imagine our life without friction. Why I am saying? Because neither you can hold the object, nor you can walk on the floor, nor you can ride the cycle, or nor you can stop the cycle when you are riding, nor you can play any games. Everywhere friction plays very, very vital role. As it is a friction force, it is measured in Newton or Dyne as usual. We have seen the units also. Unit of friction is Newton or Dyne. Why? Because it is also a force. Right? This is a complete summary of the friction. May the body of the friction may be, see, frictional force acts on every body where one body is over the other. So one body is moving, other body is staying right. See, it may be on horizontal surface. Is in this on these 2 bodies also frictional force comes into play. So say this is a body number 1 and body number 2. Suppose the body may be inclined. Even on inclined body also, the frictional force come into play. Right, 1, 2. Body may be either horizontal or inclined or any direction or rolling, no matter. The frictional force comes into act in the opposite direction to the motion. If the body is moving in this direction, force will act in the opposite direction. So to move, suppose you want to move, what we have to do? We have to overcome the direct force of friction. Once you overcome the force of friction, you start moving. Means static friction becomes sliding friction or kinetic friction. But later technology developed, so they introduced the wheels to reduce the friction. So the static friction is greater than the sliding friction, which is greater than the rolling friction. Clear? When the body is rolling, friction is less. Easily you can. Clear or not? This is a complete picture about the friction or frictional force. Right? So before ending the session, you can see the today's work, homework or synopsis. You can mention what are the various methods for reducing friction. You can find your material, or you can find this video also, because just now I shown the very important points for the reducing friction. If you want, you can note down these points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points are there. So take your time to note down these points before concluding the class, right? All of you write down this as a very important points, that is today's work, and take the signature from your class teacher and your parents. So you can write down before ending the session. So I'll wait for you. Lubricant, polishing, streamlining, ball bearings, use of fine powder, use of graphite powder, use an air cushion are the various methods to reduce the friction. So we'll start the new chapter tomorrow, light chapter, which is for test 5, which is on 25th November. We will get maybe 3 to 4 classes, more than 4 classes to complete the chapter, and we can appear for the test 5 with comfortably in time. Right. So that's all for today. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you.